Mesopotamia, 2,400 years before Christ. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was a graveyard of broken crowns. Powerful cities fought for every drop of water and every inch of silt. But from this divided world, a legend was about to rise. A man whose name would echo through history. His name was Sargon of Akkad, but the story of Sargon did not begin in a palace. According to ancient legends, Sargon was born to a priestess. In those times, priestesses were forbidden to have children. His birth was a crime that carried the penalty of death. His birth had to remain hidden. So his mother made a desperate decision. She placed the baby inside a basket of reeds. She sealed the basket with bitumen, black tar from the earth, to keep water out, and placed it gently into the Euphrates River. The basket floated slowly along the river current. The child drifted toward an unknown fate, but destiny had other plans. A man named Aki discovered the basket. Aki was a royal gardener. He opened the basket and found the baby inside. Instead of abandoning the child, he raised him as his own son. The boy grew up working in the royal gardens, among trees, irrigation canals, and quiet farmland. But even as a child, Sargon was different. He was ambitious, he was intelligent, and he had a natural ability to lead others. While working in the gardens of Kish, he met a woman named Tashlultum. She was not a princess, she was a woman of the people. Tashlultum saw the fire in Sargon's soul. She became his advisor, his strength, and eventually the mother of his empire. Their marriage was the first step toward a dynasty that would rule the world. Soon, his life would change forever. As a young man, Sargon entered the service of the king of Kish. His role was humble. He became the king's cupbearer. In ancient courts, the cupbearer was a trusted position. He stood close to the king and heard every secret. Sargon watched carefully. He studied power. He studied war. He studied how kings ruled their people. But the king, Ur-Zababa, began to have nightmares. He saw Sargon rising from the river and drowning the palace in blood. Paranoia took hold of the king. He sent Sargon to the city of Uruk with a clay tablet. A secret message to King Lugal-Zage-Sai, in order to kill the messenger. But Sargon was no fool. He understood the weight of the clay in his hand. He did not walk into a trap, he walked into his destiny. At that time, Sumer was divided into powerful city-states, but one of the strongest rulers was Lugal-Zage-Sai of Uruk. His army had conquered many cities across Sumer. But Sargon saw an opportunity. He gathered supporters. Warriors, followers, and rebels were tired of the old kings. Then, he launched a rebellion.
We will change history!
A rebellion that would change history forever. The first great war began at the gates of Uruk. Lugal-Zage-Sai thought he was fighting a gardener. He did not know he was fighting a genius of war. Sargon introduced the bronze phalanx. He trained his men to move in a solid block, shields locked, spears pointed forward. It was an unstoppable wall of metal. Armies clashed across Mesopotamia. Spears struck shields. Sargon used the composite bow, made of layers of horn and wood. His archers could shoot arrows further and harder than any army in history. It was a reign of bronze death. War chariots thundered across the battlefield. Dust filled the air. And against all expectations, Sargon won. Lugal-Zage Sea was captured. Legend says he was paraded through the streets in chains. A wooden yoke was placed around his neck, like a beast of burden. Sargon led him to the gate of the god Enlil and forced the king of Sumer to crawl. It was a brutal message. The old rulers were finished. A new power had arrived. Sargon did something no ruler had done before. He conquered all the cities of Sumer, or fell. Uruk surrendered. Lagash bowed to the new king. He tore down the walls of 50 cities, stone by stone. His message was clear. From now on, there are no borders, only my empire. But the real test of his sword was yet to come. To the east lay the jagged mountains and fierce warriors of Elam. The Elamites were a people who knew no fear. They had raided Sumer for centuries, leaving only ashes behind. Sargon knew that if he did not crush Elam, his empire would never be safe. He marched his army through the burning salt flats, a land where the sun itself was an enemy. The Elamites waited in the high passes, where the terrain was their greatest weapon. Sargon used psychological warfare. He ordered his men to beat their drums through the night. Thousands of rhythmic strikes echoing in the mountains. The Elamites could not sleep. They could only wonder how many thousands were waiting in the dark. When the sun rose, Sargon did not attack from the front. He sent his light infantry through the hidden goat paths, flanking the enemy. The Battle of Elam was a bloodbath. Sargon's archers fired from the heights, raining arrows like a storm of wasps. The Elamite king was captured on the battlefield, his gold-handled sword broken in Sargon's hand. Akkad had not just won, they had destroyed the myth of Elamite power. City after city came under his rule. Sargon created something the world had never seen, the first empire in human history. The Akkadian Empire. At the center of this empire stood the city of Akkad, a powerful capital, lost to history today. But Sargon was not satisfied. His armies marched further. He marched north into the great cedar forests of Syria. He faced the mountain tribes who fought with stone and fire. But Sargon used siege warfare. He built towers of wood to climb their walls and machines to crush their gates. West toward the Mediterranean Sea, east into the mountains of Elam. Ancient records claim he conquered more than 30 cities. He washed his blood-stained weapons in the Persian Gulf to show that the world was his. Trade routes expanded across the empire. Gold flowed through markets. Silver and timber traveled across deserts and rivers. For the first time, a single ruler controlled a vast region. Sargon reorganized his empire carefully. He placed loyal governors in conquered cities. He created the first secret police, spies who lived in every tavern and market. He knew every word spoken against him. He protected trade routes and caravans. And Akkadian culture spread across Mesopotamia. His wife, Tashlultum, managed the economy of the capital. She was the brain behind the gold, while Sargon was the sword. But ruling an empire was never easy. Rebellions began to rise. The sons of the kings he had killed were now grown men. They wanted their father's crowns back. Cities attempted to break free. Enemies attacked from distant lands, from the cold mountains of the north. Yet again and again, Sargon crushed the revolts. He used scorched earth tactics. If a city rebelled, he burned their crops and salted their earth. He made them starve until they begged for mercy. His reputation grew stronger. Some called him a hero. Others feared him as a conqueror king. But everyone knew his name. For decades, Sargon ruled the greatest empire of his age. He had built the first superpower on Earth. Yet even the greatest rulers cannot escape time. As Sargon grew older, new threats appeared. A great drought struck parts of the land. The rivers began to shrink, and the gods seemed to turn away. Rebellions began again. This time, the cities rose as one. Sargon was old, his hair was white, but his spirit was iron. They besieged him in his own city of Akkad. But Sargon did not hide. He led his 5,400 immortals out of the gates. It was a massacre. He fought like a man possessed by the goddess of war. The rebels were crushed, their bodies left for the crows. And powerful tribes from the mountains attacked Mesopotamia. Still, Sargon remained strong until the end. Around 2279 before Christ, Sargon of Akkad died. He died in his palace, with Tashlultum by his side. But his legacy did not disappear. He had changed history forever. He proved that one man, born from nothing, could own the world. He proved that many cities could be ruled under one empire. Future empires would follow his example. The Babylonians, the Assyrians, and every empire that came after. And it all began with a child in a basket, floating quietly down a river, from hidden birth to emperor of the first empire on Earth. The story of Sargon of Akkad remains one of the greatest legends in history. A story written in blood and carved in gold.